Welcome to the
Mhm.
podcast, Angela. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for joining me on a
Good.
beautiful afternoon. Angela,
Hmm.
can you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do for everybody who's listening to this episode right now?
My name is Angela Burson. I live in Savannah, Georgia, in the United States. I'm a painter. I paint mostly acrylic on wood panel and a lot of figurative or cropped figurative imagery and some interior spaces. Let's see, I went to college at the Savannah College of Art and Design way back. Graduated in 1991, so I've been painting a really long time.
Wonderful. Firstly, congratulations because you just won. You were the winner for Create Magazine's winner issue, women's issue, and we were one of the sponsors. And I'm so glad that we have you on the podcast. A big congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So,
I'm
Angela,
honored to
yeah.
be in the magazine and yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, 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 please. You've not been only published in Create magazine, you've been also published in some from Frankie magazine, Colossal, Juxtapose. I think most of them, all you've shown your work around the world. Can you share your experience of, growing your career as an artist and what does it feel like today?
I have sort of started from just showing locally in my
Okay.
town and with my college, and then I just started entering magazines. So I think my first one was I entered New American Paintings,
Okay.
and I kept entering because I didn't get in for many, a few years. So I just every year I just
Okay.
enter. Um, I didn't let it discourage me if I didn't get in. And so eventually,
Yeah.
I think, it depends on the juror of the magazine. And I almost gave up
Hmm.
with the New American Paintings. And then I saw that there was a juror that
Hmm.
their work was sort of seemed like sort of Southern based, or I think they're from New Orleans, something like that. And I thought, well, maybe this would be my chance. I'm going to try one
Yeah.
more time. And so I entered it, and that then it was selected. So I think it just I just kept trying, and then I entered Create Magazine's Women
Yeah.
issue right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Amazing.
And then with having like uh, those things, then other people would start to contact me and say,
Yes.
oh, I saw your work
Yeah.
here, and mostly I think from those two magazines specifically. But then it just started to grow
Yeah.
because just the
No, I
more
think that
people
is
that
that is
see it,
something with
the
being
more, yeah.
published. Yeah. Being published. So whenever you
Hmm.
have someone marketing you, someone talking about your work, um, the more
Hmm.
eyes that get on in their own network. And I think publications do a very well work with that. When one publication you're featured in one, there's a high probability that you start getting featuring in another and in another and another. Can
Yeah.
you share your own journey? How long have you been an artist? It's not that short, I anticipate.
No. So, when I was a kid, I loved drawing and painting, and but I wasn't someone that you would say would be like an artsy kid that was
Artist.
just naturally good at it or anything. I just
Yeah.
was very. I remember when I was a little kid, I had some surgeries, and all my
Okay.
brothers and sisters were playing around, and I remember having to lay on a quilt in our backyard, and these little things would fall down from a tree, like these little apples that were really hard, and I would
Hmm.
just bring my paints out and like just paint them different colors, and I remember laying on this quilt, and I got paint on the quilt, and my mom got mad at me. But I just remember like always kind of wanting to do things with my hands, always
Hands.
drawing and um, yeah, and
Mm.
sewing. My grandma took me to a needlepoint class when I was a little kid. So then in high school, my sister really good artist, and she
Oh,
was like the
wow.
art star in our high school. And I just like the teacher didn't even acknowledge me really at all. But I still just did it, you know, and I had fun, and everything I made was kind of wrong and weird, and it's when I look back, I can see my future work in what I was doing as a high school student. Like I remember this kid sitting in front of me. I drew the back of his body and his belt, which had his name written on it. Um, and that was like one of my pictures that, the teacher didn't like it. And then I went to college and I didn't know what I wanted to do at all. So I was just going to a local liberal. I thought there's nothing that fits me. I didn't like anything. My mom would say, "Oh, you should be in PR or you should, you know, do like some sort of," she's like, "You're really good with people. You're really friendly. You should do something with that." And I was just like, "Oh, that sounds horrible. I don't know." Um, so I took an art class in college and I really learned a lot through that class. Um, and I wasn't good still, but the teacher encouraged me, and he said, like, we go out to paint or we go out to a farm or something. This was in
Hmm.
Missouri. So
Hmm.
I grew up in Kansas City, the Kansas City area of Missouri.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and so we go and we draw, and he said, like, I was just painting everything like the red barn, brown tree, green leaves. And he said, "Is that barn really red?" And he's like, "Do you see like that there's like a dark red, and where the light hits, it's like lighter?" And I was like, "Oh, wow. Yeah, I see that." He sort of taught me how to look,
Yeah.
which is something I didn't ever think
I
about.
will look at that. Yeah.
And then, yeah, so I look at details and look at light, which sounds so obvious now as an artist. You probably,
Hmm. But your work
understand
currently,
that. But
yeah,
yeah, um,
your work currently is a very good balance between. No, go ahead. You can finish your part.
okay. Um, so I started, we'd have to put our work up for a critique in this class. And mine was always a little bit off, but he was like, this is not right, but there's something so energetic, and there's something here, even if you're not like a great draftsman um, and then over time, I, tried to embrace my imperfections
Hmm.
and the thing that was good, and not worry so much about like what I
Hmm.
thought was supposed to be good art, which was like
Yeah.
naturalistic, and I just didn't know at that time
Yeah.
what what good art could be, I guess.
Yeah. I love that. Tell me about your subject matter. What's with the cut off heads and like there's something always like you can feel that there is one whole thing, but you always know there's something missing. Um, and what is your subject matter? Why? I love. I really love this style because it just makes you feel like there's somebody standing. Like there's I can see. A woman, a skirt, a blouse, but not really a woman. Like it gives some a lot away without giving a lot away.
And that is completely my point, I think,
Oh wow.
that I don't want it to have a specific, I don't want you to attach a specific identity or person to the figure. So
Hmm.
my idea with cropping the head, or sometimes at first I started just to have almost like a mannequin, like there was just a collar, like a empty shirt
Yeah,
or a empty
I see.
dress. But then I started putting hands, so
Yeah,
they weren't actually empty,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then all the details, like the jewelry, the bag, the
yeah,
bracelets, like the pattern, that all that gives you some sort of like insight or clues into who this
Right.
person is, what they're
Right.
doing.
Right.
And then I started kind of going cropping the figure. I mean, I still do headless sometimes, but it depends because if you're in an interior, if I'm like painting an interior space with a chair and a couch, and it looks
Hmm.
weird to have a headless person in my like in that space. So I started cropping the figure if they're, and giving a close up without giving an identity with a visual face, like, oh, this is me, or this is my sister, or this is, you know, some really
It could
specific
be anybody.
person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
But why these why figures in the first place, with or without people? Or, there's also detail for fashion. Stylized shoes, these handbags, and stylish suitcases, and I specifically, because a lot of my own work also has that influence. I specifically don't know why it has a lot for me to do with my mom and how I spent growing up. And I think we do share that, because I also grew up in India. I was highly influenced by crafts, but it does translate very differently into my work, because I'm very highly influenced by embroideries, and so are you, by needlework. And I do see that domesticity, but in a very contemporary way, I feel. What has drawn you to this subject, and what is how did you even arrive at it? Like, did your work look like this before in the early years? What were you working on?
In the early years, I was dealing with like some paper doll type figures, which were given to me by my grandmother. Well, it was like after she died, she wanted us to have these little paper dolls. So they were little outfits with no heads because you put the clothes onto the little figure. So there are all these little clothes, and I started doing figures and then clothes with the little tabs that you would fold to go behind the figure, and it holds the clothes onto this little paper doll. And so I was doing some paintings with the paper dolls, and they would have things like roller skates or shoes, and so there's all these little pieces of clothing, and that was kind of an early influence. And I sort of took those figures and
Hmm.
started putting together something a little bit different. And I was also doing these sort of toys, like tin toys, old toys, long ago. And I think I was focused on dolls and toys, and that changed into like adults, I guess. I don't know. So I started just painting the. I remember having a breakthrough moment in my practice. It was like 2000 and I think four, and or maybe a little earlier, and I painted a portrait of my grandma wearing this big coat, and it was from a photograph, and I ended up being kind of frustrated with the like how it was going. And I just painted out everything except the coat. And I just put a pattern all over the board, and all I left was this coat. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like this, and then I painted the interior of the coat, and I gave it a little tag with her initials, or and that was kind of the moment that I started like having these empty clothing things.
Empty heads.
Yeah.
Where do you draw your inspiration on day-to-day basis?
My inspiration? Oh no. For the dresses or for just any?
Just your work. Like, how do you keep yourself? Like, are these moments at home, you're looking at parties, or like you're going out there, or you have photographs? Like, what are you really looking at, and what really catches your attention and feels like, okay, this is something I would like to, bring it on canvas.
Well, going to a lot of museums all over the world. Like I traveled a lot in my 30s and early 40s to
Oh wow.
Europe, and I went to a lot of museums, and I would always look at, I would see the whole painting, but really, I just really loved looking at like a hand and like the way someone might have painted a cuff or lace, or like in Dutch paintings, like you have this very intricate white paintings that had intricate lace painted on them, and like, or like a little kid with a pet, like those old Renaissance paintings, and they're
Yeah.
holding a little puppy, or
Oh,
and I started just thinking, I love this painting. If I painted this, I would just paint this little part because it's my favorite part of the whole. Yeah. So that's kind of how I started to be inspired to kind of just paint what I want. Because someone told me, like, you can paint anything you want. Like, you don't have to paint the whole thing and just have your favorite part. So I just started painting my
picking your
favorite
favorites.
parts of a, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So in a
And
bit, you're
then
also
leaving
like
out all the rest that I didn't.
no, in the way, I also see it in this way, like, when with each painting, you are picking your favorite parts, and when all those come together, you're telling a new story, your story.
Hmm. Yeah. And when you have little parts and you hang them all together, they become
Yeah.
like a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. A new whole.
Hmm.
Okay.
And depending on what you put next to each other, it
Yeah.
creates a
Yeah. It's
whole
like
nother
puzzle, a
story or
jigsaw.
composition. Hmm. Yes. Yes.
What
Yeah.
do you think, all the years that you've been an artist, a woman artist, what has been your biggest struggle, setback, something that's held you back?
I think at first I have two kids that are now like in their 20s, but
Yeah.
when
You
I
look
was,
very young for that, though.
a young mom, oh, thank you. Thank you. When I was like a young mom, and, you know, when I got out of college, I was having shows and everything. And then I, was sort of just a mom, and I stayed home because we lived in this really small town in Missouri, and there wasn't really any great jobs for me, that I wanted to do. And I wanted to stay home with my kids. So I would just make work at the kitchen table, and I would make work when I wasn't needing to, what maybe they're at school or something like that. So I was always working, and but I wasn't really seriously pursuing, being an artist. I was just making things because I like to make things. And that is not what I'm saying is a setback. It's just that my timeline was like raising the kids, like, having fun with them, and then doing art projects, and, having my own. I'd maybe have one show a year, or I'd participate in a show, like a group show. Um, and then as I got older and they got older, I sort of started to do a little bit more, but I felt like I wasn't taking myself that seriously. And it wasn't really until like 20, oh, I don't know, maybe 20, when I like 2006 to 8, I really started to think I want
What
to be an
changed
artist.
then
And
for
then
you?
2012, I think my kids growing up, and then I ended up getting, this is personal, but I ended up getting a divorce in 2012, and that freed me like from a lot of um, things that were holding me back, um, for my own reasons. Not, I'm not saying that anyone necessarily was holding me back except myself, because I don't think I was taking. Mhm. So I don't think I was taking myself seriously. And then when I was on my own, I could just really focus on what I was like, I want to be an artist. Like, it's now or never, I'm like, I'm in my late 40s at that point. Like right now I'm 55. Um, so, well, I guess I was in my 40s. So I thought, if I'm going to do this, I need to take myself seriously. And I started calling myself an artist. and I
Oh
was
wow.
showing,
You didn't call
and
yourself
just
before?
really, I no, I mean, I said I'm an artist, but I didn't say, like, if you asked me what my job was, or like, I wouldn't have written artist. And I started writing artist on everything. Like if I applied for a credit card or something, I'd be like artist. I just started really manifesting that, and I feel like I've made that kind of happen. And I also have people around me that were supporting me and saying like, "Oh, I love that," or I'd have people that I think were starting to believe in me as an artist, and
Like you said,
even
now
like my
when you believe in
family was,
yourself is when people believe in you.
hmm yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
that was kind of how I became serious, more I took myself more seriously, and other people started taking me more
I
seriously.
love that. Now at 55,
I
you've
know.
done so many amazing shows,
Hmm.
amazing work. What is that exciting you? And where do you what do you dream for yourself as an artist
I
specifically?
think
As a woman artist.
yeah, for as a woman artist, I mean, I just want to be able to always keep making what
Yeah.
I want to make and have that freedom, to have a studio, and to be able to paint, and to be able to afford to do that. And I think a career comes, sometimes you're fashionable and sometimes you're not. And like you have to sustain that. And I really
Yeah.
want to sustain my career. And then I
Yeah.
want to be able to just like make work, to show, to talk with other artists, to have community, and to help other artists if I can. And just to keep, I guess my dream is to do what I'm doing, and I just hope I can
Keep
continue
doing it.
it.
Yeah. To be able to, I think it's an important goal because a lot of times, specifically as artists, we have highs and lows. And a lot of times we are aiming for the top of the peak, but we also have to keep thinking about how to make a career that's sustainable, that's just not a one coming and going. And how do you keep your practice? How am I able to do this for the rest of my life or whenever till when I want to do it? And I think that's an important and a really important goal for sure.
Yeah, and I want to always like try to keep the part of it that's meaningful to me. It's not just about like success in the outer way, but that it's like an inner, that I'm really making the paintings that are meaningful to me, and hopefully, other people will see that as well. And I mean, there are like big dreams, like, oh, I'd love to show in a have a museum show, or like, or something, but like, I think if you keep following the thing that's really important, that maybe the other things come with that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Angela. Thank you so much for your time. And I had a great chat with you. And thank you so much for sharing your story. And again, a big congratulations on being the winner of the Women's Issue by Create Magazine. Thank you for sharing this story with us and for being here. One last thing, if you have anything coming up, any project that you want to share with us, and where can people find you and support you, please, this is your time.
All right. Well, first of all, it's really been a pleasure to speak with you, and I would love to ask you questions like, what are your biggest dreams? Like, where do you want, how do you see yourself? Like,
I love that. This is a question I think, you know, I would have answered this very differently if I was asked this 4 years ago. I lost my mom to COVID. And
hmm,
since
I'm
then, a lot
sorry.
of my life, how I look at life has changed. Like you said, for me, even though for me, being creative, being able to live a free and creative life is
Hmm.
is one of the biggest goals. And that does not mean that I only get to be a professional creative, because a lot of times when you're doing something professionally, it is way more than what you want. It is a lot about, okay, like you said, the work that you're making, maybe, you get a museum show or whatever, but just being able to get up and feel inspired and maybe do art for my own self, apart from any other reason, uh,
Hmm.
because having that center of what truly matters. Because when you lose something, you understand that everything else did was important. Like, when I lost my mom, I realized, okay, my work was important, but at the end
Hmm.
of the day, I still cherish the time I've had with her. I want to live a life that is more meaningful, that whatever I do, I get to create, and I don't define that creation. I want to create a creative life, just not a creative profession. I don't know if that makes sense. And
Hmm.
I think
That
also,
does make sense. That's beautiful.
thank you so. And I think that also, another aspect to
Mhm.
my life that feels very important is being able to give back and share whatever I have, whatever I know, with other women. Because I come from a part of the world where I felt as a woman not given enough platform, never enough voice, identity, and all of
Mhm.
those things. So I think with whatever I do, I keep on thinking, when days, when there are days when things feel hard, and I'm like, if I push through this, I'm not only doing this for myself, I'll open a door for someone else too. And I think that really motivates me. Otherwise, I'm like, some days you just feel like, okay, I'd rather just give up everything. I don't have to make so hard for myself, and it wouldn't really matter. But at the end of the day, then I realize, um, if I do this, if I go through the hard today, maybe it'll teach me something for sure, but it'll also open an opportunity for someone else. And I think that really matters.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really good. I love that. And I
Thank you
think
so much
like
for
even as, someone that you're welcome. Even like someone like that feels like, you're on the right path as far as like showing and galleries. And sometimes it is hard and it feels hard and you're like, oh my gosh, this seems like a lot of work and a lot of,
yeah.
like I'm just, having to, I don't like it's just not easy sometimes. And
Sometimes, you know
it's like
what,
a
Angela,
job.
I feel
Yeah.
like, this is a discussion that I've been also recently having to myself, to people I discuss these things. Is um I came to, after my mom, I came to a point in my life that I started to think, okay, if I do this, when we are brought up in a way, oh, if you make this much money, you'll be happy, or you'll feel worthy, or you'll have things together, and all of those things. And like artists also, a lot of time we feel like, if I reach this point in my life where, oh, I'm having so many galleries, I'm selling so much work, this is what I want. But more than often, when you reach that stage, you realize, oh, this is only something I wanted to do. It's like a checklist, because the world thought that I would
Hmm.
feel validated, I would feel seen, I would feel enough, I want to check this off. A lot of times, a lot of our goals sometimes are influenced by what people, we need to feel ourselves worthy, versus what we truly want. I think that takes a lot of more knowing ourselves, spending time with ourselves, and digging deep to truly know. Maybe I don't really care if how much I sell, but I'd really care if I stop making, if I reach a point where I get so discouraged
Hmm.
or so overwhelmed that I stop making. That is a bigger failure for me than any other success.
Yeah. Yeah. That is that's really true. And it feels good to be validated and there you can get some like, motivation from that. And also, when people want you to show, you have to make more work and it almost forces you to go into your studio every day and really, you know, even if you feel like it or not, like you're going to go in there and just see what happens, So it can be motivating in that way, but then it can also feel like you're forcing, yourself, like you're forcing yourself to have a lot of empty time in the studio where you're filling it exactly. But it's good to, I mean, I always feel like it's good for me just to go in and even if I'm sweeping the floor or something, I am looking and I'm thinking and,
Yeah,
but
there are so many more ways. Like there are more than one ways to be
okay.
creative.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and I think procrastinating is one of those ways.
Yeah, it's good at some point till some point, and when it crosses that, it becomes it has more to take away than give.
Yeah, that's true. Look, the
But
sun's coming up.
yeah, we've it was dark enough, and I can see the sun out there already, and all bright in window. But thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and you making it through the early morning and being able, to be able to have this chat.
Yeah, it was really nice. So you asked me about what
Yeah.
I have coming up,
Yeah.
um, and I have a solo show in October at Hashimoto
Hmm.
Contemporary in San Francisco.
Hmm.
Um, and then I'm not 100% sure, but I might have something in Miami for the um, like a fair that's not the main fair, but like so anyway, I don't know if that's 100% yet. So, but
Okay.
I'm definitely going to be making paintings regardless, whether whatever
Amazing.
comes up. So I'll have some work because right now my studio is just pretty much empty,
Oh, wow.
which is daunting but good.
Calling for you also.
Yeah, and I have a show up in Spain right now at Galleria Rafael Perez Hernando that's ending, I think, this week. And that's been I went there and it was so beautiful to see. They, I went to the show and I just thought this is as good as my work can look. Like they did such a great job, and I was just like really happy. And it made me, yeah.
Congratulations.
So that was a
Where can
real
people
good
find?
win. It was like, yay. What?
I'm asking where can then people find you on Instagram if they want to look at all of these images and
Oh,
your shows?
yeah. It's at Angela Burson,
And
ANGELABURSON. And then I
perfect.
have a
Oh,
website that's angelaburson.com.
perfect. Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you so much for your time. And I am so glad we spoke. Thank you. And I'll see you soon.
It's been a pleasure. All right. Thank you. Bye.